Independent mechanics. The ones who see every make and model every single day, who work on Ferraris and pickup trucks and everything in between, have opinions about which cars they are glad to see and which ones they would quietly rather pass on. They will never say this out loud when you call for an appointment, because that is not how the business works. But in the shop, among themselves, there are vehicles they dread and vehicles they love to see. Today I am going to tell you which 5 Honda models make experienced independent mechanics uncomfortable in 2026. Not because those cars are poorly engineered or unreliable in normal ownership, but because specific issues with those exact models make them significantly more difficult, more expensive, or more restricted to properly diagnose and repair outside of a Honda dealership. If you own one of these, this video will tell you exactly what to watch for and what to do about it. If you are shopping for a used Honda right now, this information may change which model you choose. Welcome to HondaRealm. Subscribe and hit the bell if you are new here. Every week we publish a new video with the inside information Honda owners need before it matters to them. Let's get into it. Model number 1. The 2017 to 2020 Honda CR-V equipped with the 1.5-liter turbocharged engine, specifically because of a documented oil dilution problem that affects it in cold climates, and the reason independent mechanics in those regions are genuinely cautious about these engines. Let me explain what oil dilution actually is and why it matters for your engine's long-term health. In a direct injection turbocharged engine, like the 1.5T in this generation CR-V, the fuel injection system introduces fuel directly into the combustion chamber under very high pressure. When an engine is cold, operating below approximately 20 degrees Fahrenheit, as experienced regularly in winter throughout the Midwest, the Great Lakes region, and the entire Northeast. The fuel combustion process is not as complete during cold starts and short trips around town. Some of that uncombusted or partially combusted fuel ends up washing down the cylinder walls and mixing into the oil sump. This is called fuel dilution of the engine oil. Oil that has been diluted with gasoline is thinner than its rated viscosity. It does not maintain the proper film thickness between engine bearings and bearing journals. It loses some of its protective properties under load. And in a turbocharged engine where bearing lubrication is absolutely critical, the turbocharger runs at over 100,000 RPM and depends entirely on the oil supply for both lubrication and cooling. Thin, diluted oil is a serious long-term concern. Honda was aware of this issue. They issued software calibration updates for some markets to adjust fuel injection parameters and reduce the degree of dilution that occurs during cold operation. They also extended warranty coverage on certain affected VIN ranges in certain geographic markets. But the fix was inconsistent across the full population of affected vehicles, and independent mechanics in cold climate states report that these engines, particularly those operated primarily on short trips in cold temperatures over several winters, show signs of accelerated bearing at mileages where a Honda engine should be in completely sound condition. If you currently own a 2017 to 2020 CR-V 1.5T in a cold climate state, the most important thing you can do right now is change your oil more frequently than the maintenance minder suggests. Every 4,000 to 5,000 miles through the winter months, regardless of what the dashboard says. Additionally, develop a habit of pulling the dipstick monthly and smelling the oil. If the oil on your dipstick has a noticeable gasoline smell, active fuel dilution is occurring and you need a fresh oil change immediately regardless of mileage. If you are shopping for a used CR-V from this year range and the seller is in a cold weather state, insist on an independent pre-purchase inspection that includes an oil sample sent for laboratory analysis. An oil analysis costs about $30 at most inspection services and will tell you definitively whether fuel dilution has been occurring in that specific engine over its history. That $30 investment could save you from purchasing a vehicle with measurable internal engine where that will manifest as problems in the near future. Model number 2, the The 2018 to 2021 Honda Odyssey, equipped with the 9-speed automatic transmission, and this is a situation where Honda's partnership with ZF, one of the world's largest and most experienced transmission manufacturers, produced results that have been deeply frustrating for a significant number of owners and a genuine headache for independent repair shops. The 9-speed ZF automatic in the 4th-generation Odyssey was supposed to represent a step forward in efficiency and shift refinement. In practice, it became one of the most complained about transmissions in Honda's recent history, generating enough owner complaints to prompt Honda to extend the powertrain warranty coverage on affected vehicles. The documented failure modes are specific and consistent across owner reports. Shuddering during low-speed acceleration, particularly in the 5 to 25 mile/hour range during light throttle application. Hard and jerky shifts between gears that are inconsistent. Sometimes the car shifts smoothly, then the next identical driving situation produces a harsh jolt. Torque converter clutch shudder at highway cruise speeds that feels exactly like driving over a rumble strip. And in a meaningful number of cases, complete transmission failure before the vehicle reached 60,000 miles. If you own one of these Odysseys and have experienced any of these symptoms but have not investigated your warranty coverage, check your VIN against Honda's extended warranty records immediately. You may have remaining coverage that covers a substantial repair. Here is why independent mechanics specifically find this transmission difficult to work with. The ZF 9-speed requires Honda factory diagnostic software to properly communicate with its control module and accurately read the fault codes it generates. A standard generic OBD2 scanner, the type that most independent shops rely on for initial vehicle diagnosis, does not fully communicate with this transmission's proprietary control system. The fault codes either do not appear at all or appear as generic, vague codes that do not point to the actual source of the problem. Without the ability to read the transmission's own fault codes accurately, the independent shop is essentially working partially blind. They may see symptoms, they may see a direction to look, but they cannot confirm exactly what is happening inside the transmission without the right diagnostic tool. Many experienced independent mechanics in markets with high Odyssey populations now immediately tell owners with active transmission symptoms to go directly to a Honda dealer rather than risk misdiagnosis and potentially expensive, unnecessary repairs. Model number 3, the 2019 to 2022 Honda Passport, which carries the same fundamental 9-speed transmission family as the Odyssey, and shares some of its problems while having at least one additional specific issue of its own that creates its own diagnosis trap at independent shops. The Passport's 9-speed transmission exhibits the torque converter clutch shudder symptom with particular prominence. This is a vibration or shuddering sensation that occurs during light throttle application, typically in the 40 to 65 mile/hour cruise range, which is unfortunately the exact speed range that most highway drivers spend the majority of their time. At moderate highway speeds with light throttle, the torque converter lockup clutch engages to improve fuel efficiency, and the shudder occurs when that clutch is not locking and unlocking smoothly and consistently. Honda released a software calibration update that specifically addresses this torque converter lockup behavior in the Passport's transmission. In many cases, applying this update completely resolves or substantially reduces the shudder. In most remaining cases, it meaningfully improves it. The critical detail that creates the problem. This fix requires that the technician applying it has current Honda-specific calibration software, including the most recent update files for the Passport's transmission control module. Many independent shops, even well-equipped ones that have invested in comprehensive diagnostic tools, do not maintain active subscriptions to Honda's calibration update service. The cost and the relatively small percentage of their business that requires Honda-specific software calibrations simply does not justify the ongoing expense for most general repair shops. When a Passport comes in with the shudder complaint and the shop does not have the current Honda calibration files, they run their available diagnostic, may or may not find a relevant fault code, and are left with the impression that the problem is mechanical in nature. Some shops have disassembled the valve body, replaced the torque converter, or in some cases recommended a complete transmission replacement for a problem that the software calibration resolves completely at zero cost to the owner under warranty. If you own a Passport and experience the torque converter shudder, go directly to a Honda dealer. Tell them specifically you are experiencing torque converter clutch shudder at highway cruise speeds, and you want to confirm whether the applicable software calibration update has been applied to your vehicle. Do not authorize any mechanical transmission disassembly or component replacement from any shop, dealer or independent, until a software calibration update has been attempted and confirmed as either effective or not applicable for your specific situation. Model 4 is interesting because it is on this list for a completely different reason than the first three. The 2019 and newer Honda Insight is not an unreliable car. In fact, it is one of Honda's most fuel-efficient and technically impressive vehicles in the current lineup. It is on this list because of a specific barrier that affects who can legally and safely work on it, and what that reality means for your service options, your wait times, and your repair costs as an owner. Model number 4, the Honda Insight Hybrid, 2019 to the present generation. The Insight uses Honda's two-motor hybrid system, a sophisticated parallel hybrid architecture with an Atkinson cycle gasoline engine, a primary electric drive motor, and a separate generator motor, all managed by a power control unit that coordinates between the three power sources seamlessly. From a pure engineering and ownership experience standpoint, it is an impressive system that delivers excellent real-world fuel economy with smooth, quiet, seamless operation in everyday driving. The issue is not the car's engineering or reliability. The issue is access to qualified service, and this is a structural problem that affects every Honda hybrid owner regardless of how carefully they maintain their vehicle. Honda's hybrid powertrain operates at voltages in the high-voltage circuit, between the battery pack, the inverter, and the electric motor, that are genuinely dangerous without the proper equipment and training. Working safely around that high-voltage system requires specific certification, dedicated safety equipment including properly rated insulating gloves and insulating mats, high-voltage testing equipment to verify the system is de-energized before work begins, and detailed familiarity with Honda's specific isolation and lockout procedures. Independent mechanics who have not completed Honda's hybrid certification training program and who do not have the required safety equipment should not be working on those high-voltage components. Most do not, and this is entirely appropriate. Untrained work on high-voltage automotive systems is a genuine safety hazard. In practical terms, this means that if your Insight develops any issue related to the hybrid system, battery performance degradation, inverter faults, regenerative braking anomalies, or any hybrid system warning lie, you are going to a Honda dealer or one of the relatively small number of independent shops that are both Honda certified for hybrid work and properly equipped. In most regions, that number of qualified independent shops is limited. Wait times at authorized locations may be significantly longer than at a general repair shop. Labor rates will typically be higher than at a standard independent shop given the specialized training and equipment required. There is a secondary consideration that often surprises Insight owners. Even routine maintenance tasks that appear completely unrelated to the hybrid system can be affected. Rear brake service on the Insight, for example, requires following Honda's specific isolation procedure for the high-voltage system before beginning work because hybrid system components are in physical proximity to the rear brake assembly. Any shop that is not familiar with this specific procedure and does not follow it is creating a safety risk during what should be a routine service. None of this means you should avoid the Insight. The car is reliable, the fuel economy is genuinely impressive, and for owners who value those qualities, it is an excellent Honda. But go in with realistic expectations about your service ecosystem. Research Honda dealers in your area specifically for their hybrid service capability before you need an urgent repair, and establish that relationship before you are in a situation where you need it quickly. Model number 5. The 2003 to 2007 Honda Accord V6 with the automatic transmission, and specifically the well-documented third-gear clutch pack failure that has been appearing in these vehicles for years and that experienced mechanics recognize immediately when one rolls into the shop. This is an older generation, but there are still a significant number of these Accords on the road. They are frequently recommended as solid used car purchases for buyers on a budget. The V6 Accord of this era has a reputation for reliability that is mostly well-earned, which is exactly why so many of them are still in daily service 2 decades later. The 5-speed automatic transmission paired with the V6 in these years is in most respects a durable and capable unit. The weakness is specific and well understood. The clutch pack responsible for engaging third gear degrades faster than the other gear clutch packs under normal driving conditions. The exact engineering reason involves the duty cycle of third gear. How frequently the transmission selects it during typical driving, how much torque it is asked to manage, and the characteristics of the friction material used in that specific clutch application. Over tens of thousands of miles of normal driving, the third-gear clutch pack develops increased slip and eventually fails. The symptoms follow a recognizable progression. Early stages. The transmission slips noticeable when shifting into or through third gear. The engine RPM briefly flares, and the car hesitates slightly during the 2 to 3 shift. Middle stages. The RPM flare becomes more pronounced and consistent, and you may notice the car hesitating more before settling into third. Late stages. The transmission may refuse to stay in third gear or exhibit harsh, unpredictable behavior around that gear selection. An experienced mechanic who works on these Accords regularly recognizes this failure pattern instantly when the car rolls in and the owner describes the symptoms. The critical variable in how long the third gear clutch pack survives is transmission fluid condition. Honda ATF DW1 is the correct fluid for this transmission. It is specifically formulated for Honda's transmission friction materials and keeps the clutch packs properly lubricated and protected against premature wear. Using incorrect fluid, or using the right fluid that has degraded significantly over mileage, accelerates the wear of all the clutch packs, including the already vulnerable third gear pack. If you own one of these Accords and you do not know when the transmission fluid was last changed, or you know it has been more than 30,000 miles since the last service, book a transmission fluid service this week. The fluid change at a shop runs $100 to $150. A transmission rebuild for the failed third gear clutch pack runs $1,800 to $3,000. A complete transmission replacement runs $2,500 and up. If you are buying one of these Accords used, ask specifically and directly when the ATF DW1 was last changed. If the seller does not know or cannot produce documentation, factor an immediate transmission fluid service into your budget from the day you take delivery. Do not wait. 5 Honda models with specific situations that make them more challenging, more expensive, or more restricted to service outside of a Honda dealership. A CR-V generation with a documented cold climate fuel dilution concern. An Odyssey and Passport with transmission diagnostic complexity that puts independent shops at a significant disadvantage. A hybrid that requires specialized certification and equipment to safely service. An AV6 Accord with a documented, well-understood failure mode that is almost entirely preventable with proper transmission fluid maintenance. If you own one of these, you are not stuck. Every single situation I described is manageable with the right information and the right approach, which is exactly what you now have. The CR-V owner knows to monitor oil condition monthly and change it more frequently in winter. The Odyssey and Passport owner knows to go directly to a Honda dealer for transmission symptoms before authorizing any mechanical work anywhere. The Insight owner knows to find and establish a relationship with a Honda-certified hybrid service center before they need one urgently. The V6 Accord owner knows to change that ATF DW1 this week regardless of when it was last done. Share this video with anyone you know who owns or is considering one of these models. This is exactly the kind of information that prevents very expensive surprises from appearing at the worst possible moment. Subscribe to HondaRealm and hit the bell. Every week we publish a new video with the real, specific, actionable information that Honda owners need. I will see you next week.